Okay, hi everyone. It's Edwin Rutch. I'm running for Congress in Congressional District 8, and I'm offering to listen to the constituents in our district to just hear what they have to say about what issues are important to them. And Bill Filler has offered to wanted to share his views, and I'm going to be modeling how to do empathic listening. And that's like a core practice to our campaign, or to my campaign for Congress. And you can check out my website, edwinforcongress.com, and that'll give you a lot more information. And I would invite you to come and share your views and about the issues, your concerns, and I will be willing to listen to you. I'll just listen, we'll record it, and we'll post it so others can see it. So Bill, would you like to just introduce yourself, your name, full name, where you live?
Mm-hmm. Sure. My name is Bill Filler. I live in Richmond, California. I'm a retired special education teacher. I really think that our society needs to learn how to listen to each other with respect.
Okay, so in this process, in this listening, you're going to share a little bit, and then I'll periodically just reflect back, ask you to pause and reflect back what I hear and understand that you're saying. And so I'm hearing that you find that listening is important in our society.
Yes, because I believe that there's been a complete breakdown of our political system as far as listening is concerned. For those who might be seeing, you would identify me on the left, but I don't make my political decisions based upon an affiliation with the left or the right. I'll stop there.
So you're generally on the left, but you're not making your decisions on the left and right. You're
right, and part of the breakdown of the political system is that it's really hierarchical, based. And I keep on getting things from like the Democrats saying, we want to find out how you feel about those things. And really it's just a ploy for money, and nobody's listening and nobody really cares either.
So you think the politicians or the parties aren't really caring, they're just sort of wanting your money.
Right. And they're looking to basically stay in power. I'll stop there.
Yeah, so it's like more of a power thing. Just give us the money, we want the power, and maybe you don't really feel heard and cared about.
Right. And I think there are exceptions. There are politicians that I greatly admire, and when I do admire a politician, it's because they seem to have a vision of civilization and also democracy. And that's my major issue, that democracy is under attack.
Yeah, so you have a real concern about democracy being under attack, and that's really so it sounds like your core value.
Yeah, it is. And I believe that voting rights are core to that, because that's how people get heard in a democracy. And when you undermine voting rights, then you undermine being heard in a democratic process.
So you're really wanting everyone to have the vote, and that's a real concern that's being undermined.
Yeah, very concerning. And because as we know, in the 20th century, those who lived through various authoritarian regimes in the past and then currently realized that the authoritarian part of the message is, I don't really care about the people. I just care about my, solidifying my power, and I'll say or do anything towards that end. So there are no values,
I think I'm hearing that your concern about authoritarianism is just about, people just wanting power, and they're not concerned about you, and that you value people can be, maybe the politicians being concerned about the well-being of people.
Yeah, and in my own life, as a special education teacher, I had to deal with, I also worked at a hospital for suicidal adolescents. And so I dealt with students and families in extreme crisis. And sometimes I had to ask my assistants or to basically, do some really challenging things, to take a lot of abuse. I'll stop there.
So you dealt with a very challenging in schools. You dealt with very challenging environments, and sounds like you had to deal with abuse and violence. And you're just talking about how you dealt with that.
Yeah, and it was important. And there were two aspects. One was to show that I would do anything I was asking them to do. So that was very important. But the other was not to necessarily just assert my authority, but to reinforce the goal, which was the best outcome for the students and everybody involved. And if I could demonstrate that this was being done in the service of a great outcome for a student, or a better outcome, then that gave, what I said, legitimacy. And I'll stop there.
I think I'm hearing there that you wanted to model how to model, this behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and that if you could model it, then people could follow what you're doing, and you're trying to model how to have, do things for the well-being of the students and everyone.
Right, and that's it. And I always said, I always owe you an explanation. In other words, if people couldn't understand why we're doing this, in this particular way, I would just be transparent and say, here's the goal, which is the student outcome, good student outcome or great student outcome. And then this is why I'm doing it towards that service. And then we could talk about what the best path towards that outcome would be. But the goal is the authority, not necessarily the person.
So your philosophy is to set the goal, and then you're explaining how you do that. It's not like an authority based that, hey, you're the authority, this is it, but you've got this goal and this is how you're going to get to that goal. And it sounds like you're sort of using that as a model of openness and transparency, and maybe that's what you'd like to see in politics too, is that openness and transparency. I think you're trying to convey, try to model it put it onto the political model.
You got, that's where I was going. Absolutely. Because the political, whatever, the political candidates or people that I admire are very consistent about their goal and what they're trying to create. And the goal supersedes their own egoistic accumulation of power.
So you're wanting, like politicians that are saying what the goal is, it's not about them, their own grasping for power, but, a clear vision of where you're going and openness and transparency of how to get there. Right.
And there is a certain amount of what I call natural authority in that. If I established that to the assistants and my coworkers, that indeed I knew what I was doing as far as achieving the goal of a good student outcome, then I was imbued with a natural authority because they trusted that. And the same thing in politics. If I see a politician doing that and I can understand it and I see them working towards that end, then I trust them as an authority, in subjects where, for instance, I may not have the direct knowledge.
So if a politician is modeling that, listening, that goal setting, that openness and transparency, then you have a sense of trust for them. And that's what you're looking for in a politician. And it sounds like the goal that you would like to have set, at least one of the goals, is to create a more democratic society.
Yeah. And I see, Donald Trump as being not, being outside our Constitution and democratic process. I don't see him, he's an authoritarian. And to the extent that the Republican Party follows him, I don't see them as legitimate at all. On the other hand, I also see the Democrats, I see an old guard, power structure there who are not really responsive to the needs and are just simply doing the same thing again and again, to establish their hierarchy, their power hierarchy, and not really committing to the goals that we really need.
So you're seeing problems with the Republicans and the Democrats. So on the Republican side, you see Trump and his community as being authoritarian. And then on the Democratic side, you see there's sort of an old guard power structure. And maybe that's not there. It's just more about power, and maybe has a form of authoritarianism to it too.
Yeah, I don't think they're the Democratic Party. I think they still are committed to democracy, but you're right. It's because they don't listen. They don't really demonstrate the power of democracy, which was to feel heard.
So the problem with the Democrats is that they're not listening, and at the core. And
yeah, and an example of that is a famous example, I believe, when I think it was FDR died, and people in the millions came out to see his funeral train. Was some, yeah, I think it was FDR, but I might be wrong about that. But the key was they said, well, you didn't even know him. Why are you coming out here? And so the person said, well, FDR didn't know me personally, but I felt he heard heard me.
So even if a politician doesn't hear you personally, still kind of in a larger sense, they have maybe that listening personality, and that's maybe what you're looking for, is someone who has that listening personality, or just that way of being.
Yeah. And the other thing that I see in politics on both sides is that if you have a concern about an issue, the politicians may say, well, we've allocated so many billions or millions to this problem. I'll stop there.
Yeah. So you're seeing another problem is that the politicians are just, if they see a problem, they're just saying how much money they've assigned to it.
Right. And what I've found is that when they say that, I feel lied to, because they're not talking about where the money's going, how much is going to administrative costs. There's a lot of corruption and things. I understand there'll be some, but in these days, there's just a lot of corruption. In one sense, I see, we're going to allocate all these billions to education. And in another sense, I see in Oakland, for instance, they're closing schools. What's going on? I expect the politicians to right that ship.
Yeah, so that if a politician say we're giving money, to some problem, you want to see the details and like what's really happening sort of under the hood with all that money, how the money's being allocated. And it sounds like there's things that are happening that don't make sense to you, like the school closings.
Yeah. And I don't have to see all the details. If I see that the schools are opening and flourishing, then I don't have to see those details, because I'm like the rest of people, I'm doing my life and doing the best I can, and I can't be on top of everything. But when I see a major disconnect like that, then I really have a distrust.
So if you're seeing problems like that, it's kind of like you just don't feel trusting of it. If everything's running smoothly, there's no complaints, and just leave me alone, don't bother me with the details. If there's some real problems going on, give me the details, let me know what's going on, and let me look under the hood.
Yeah. And so I'm very worried. I'm very worried that there isn't clear messaging, I believe, from the Democrats, which I think is, I think their messaging is all over the place and kind of horrible. And then the Republicans are, they're off the map. And I do value Republicans who clearly have, standards, who put their country before their party. And I've seen those. I've worked with Republicans, Republican families, and they're fine families. But the political Republican Party is seems like a lost cause.
Mm-hmm. So you're just saying the Republican Party is a lost cause, but individually, there's plenty of Republicans you've had good relationships work with and sort of appreciate. And I'm also hearing some complaints about the Democratic Party, just this like an unclear messaging.
Yeah, just yes, that they really. I have not felt, I don't know, a strong message from them that's clear and cohesive. There are a lot of things that Democratic politicians say that I agree with, but I haven't seen a real gelling or coalescing of a clear message.
Mm-hmm. So you're looking for a clear message, maybe something that inspires you. It's more than just a clear message, or maybe something that you feel inspired about. Would that be fair?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't. In the other hand, I don't have to be. That's one thing. I don't have to be. I'd love to be inspired, like I think everyone would be, but that just as long as they, I just don't see the clear message.
Mm-hmm.
I see debates about things that shouldn't be debated.
Mm-hmm. So it's not so much you have to be inspired, but just at least there's a sense of clarity. At least a sense of clarity to what the Democrats are, what they want to do.
Yeah, and and I think that truly listening to each other, which I appreciate, is very powerful. And I found that with my students, that my students might act out violently. And what we would do is we'd kind of put together and we'd say, what was the communicative intent of that act? And, I would, when we first did it, I said, he threw a chair at, Joey. Well, I don't know what, but indeed there was. When we looked behind the scenes, we found out that, they hadn't been fed, or they'd seen something, or had a traumatic incident, and they didn't have the vocabulary or, the emotional stability to communicate it verbally. So they acted out physically. And when we took the time to listen to them and they understood how they could be heard, then the violence decreased.
So you're just seeing the importance of listening, and like it sounds like in your school, you kind of just tried to really understand where the students were, tried to listen to them and really understand why they were doing what they were doing. And if you did that, if you were listening to them, that kind of brought down the violence or problems.
Yeah. And also with my constituents, with the families that I worked with, many, had very different political views than I did. I maintained that every political stripe was welcome in my classroom, and we can talk and have opinions about things, but we must do it with respect.
So you did try to have all your teachers, not teachers, but the parents and the students, that they could all have different opinions. But the importance of just mutually talking about the different issues with the quality of respect was important to you. So it sounds like you would like to see respect, again, modeling it in the schools with your work, but also maybe in politics, that there's a quality of respect there.
Absolutely. That I would see politicians, both on the Republican and the Democratic side, dedicated to our constitutional norms, and then also working together to make a better society for us all.
And I think I'm hearing there, you'd really see the different sides, the Republicans and Democrats working together more constructively under the framework of the Constitution.
Yeah.
And so maybe more collaboration.
Yeah. And I know it's possible, because I did have, I had parents who were, very different. And I just was transparent. And I said, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. and but I want to, I want to hear what your opinion is, and in areas where I might, adjust things to not compromise my values, but also accommodate yours, I'm happy to do that. And whether, and that created some trust.
So by your listening to the students and the parents, that just kind of helps build trust. And again, it sounds like you're sort of mapping that onto the political sphere too. It's like, if we can do it here, we can do it in the political sphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that was about the 20 minutes. So I just do want to, just maybe, is there anything you want to say just in closing, or?
No, I just hope that I could see more politicians, aspire to that goal of mutual cooperation towards a mutually beneficial end for everyone.
So yeah, I'm just so in conclusion, you'd like to just see the politicians working better together for mutual well-being for everyone.
Great, thank you, Edwin. I feel fully heard.
Okay, well, good then. So thanks for modeling this. This is the first listening session that I was doing. So thanks, Bill, for being willing to share your views. And I would invite anyone else to come and just connect with me. And I'm here to offer a listening session just to hear. Really would love to hear what the constituents in the district have to say. So come and just be heard. So look forward to listening to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Edwin.